So everyone, good evening from Galilee, from Israel. This is Amir Tsarfati. Today, today is March 31st. It's Saturday, March 31st. Tomorrow, I'll be live. It's Resurrection Sunday. Some of you call it Easter. But again, tomorrow, I just want you to know that tomorrow it's going to be a live update, a live teaching, and it's not April's Fool Day. I mean, it's a real thing that we're going to do tomorrow. So here we are. I'm going to talk for a few minutes about what's going on in Gaza right now and the international reaction to the events in Gaza. Then we're going to talk about what's going on in Syria, and we're also going to talk about a couple other things. But first of all, I want to tell you, a lot of people wrote me, knowing that I'm about to leave next week to Turkey and Greece to start filming our new project, Bible Lands Unveiled. Quite a few people wrote me, and they said that they're very concerned about me traveling to Turkey nowadays. In fact, some people had some dreams and visions, and they wanted to share with me, basically warning me not to go. I'm not afraid, and I'm not normally canceling things this way just because somebody said it's dangerous. However, when we received an email from our counterparts in Turkey, the Turkish producers told us that it's better not to come, or if I am to go to Turkey, I need to basically delete all of my YouTube content because of my criticism on Erdogan. Or I don't think I criticize anything. I think I just report things that are happening. In fact, Turkey is in a very, very bad spot right now. Probably it's in its worst shape right now, as far as the fear and the terror that is in the streets, and it's not what it used to be. And we decided to, once we got that email, when we realized that my safety and my freedom is not secured over there, we decided to change our plans. And I'll be flying, in fact, to Rome, and I'll be teaching twice in Rome, Bible studies. One will be next to the Colosseum, and the other one will be next to the Vatican. And God gave me two messages. It's interesting. One is related to the book of Romans, and both of them are actually related to the book of Romans. But one is completely about Israel, about to the Jews first. The title will be When in Rome, to the Jews first. And it's very interesting. I asked the Lord, why is it that you take me all the way to Rome to teach a message on the Jewish people first? And the Lord told me, basically, everywhere Paul went, and even while being in Rome, he made sure that he fulfills his duty to go to the Jewish people first. And he shared with them. And even while being completely in his chains, probably days or weeks before his death, Paul summoned all the Jewish people to his apartment in Rome, of all places. And Paul gave them a very interesting, I'm not sure if it's called speech, but it says in Acts chapter 28, it says, "And it came to pass that after these days that Paul called the leaders of the Jews together." And that's when he came back to Rome. "Oh, so when they had come together, he said to them, 'Men and brethren, though I have done nothing against our people, or the customs of our fathers, yet I was delivered as a prisoner from Jerusalem into the hands of the Romans, who when they had examined me wanted to let me go, because they found there was no cause for putting me to death. But when the Jews spoke against it, I was compelled to appeal to Caesar. Not that I have anything of which to accuse my nation, For this reason, therefore, I have called for you to see you and speak with you, because for the hope of Israel, I am bound with this chain. Wow. Can you imagine Paul, an ultra-Orthodox Jew, is in Rome, and he's summoning the Jewish people, and he's telling them, I have nothing against you. I totally understand the blindness of our nation. I also understand that it's a blindness that God gave them because of their hardening of their hearts. But I want to tell you something. This chain on me, it is because of the hope of Israel. He is the hope of Israel. And it's always going to be to the Jew first that I will give my message. And so we're going to examine that even while in Rome. And then the other one, the other message in Rome will be, it's not about religion, brother. And the Vatican will be right behind me. So I'm going to teach in Rome, in Athens, in Corinth, and in Thessaloniki. And I'm really looking forward to it, because this is, to me, I know that there's millions of Christians around the world that will never be able to come to Israel nor to any of those Bible lands. And my heart is to bring Israel to them and to bring Bible lands to them, and to make them understand the Word of God in the context of the places and the events, and of course the history, geography, topography, and everything. And so I can't wait to film those teachings, and I can't wait to release those DVDs and those teachings online. So pray for us. Next Friday we're leaving to Rome, and pray for us that the Lord will bless those things. And I'm confident that He who began the good work will be faithful to complete it. So so I'm not going to Turkey, and we're going to start with, just a few minutes ago, President Erdogan said that the Jewish people, or Israel, he said, committed what he says war crimes against the Palestinian people. And let me just explain what happened. The Palestinians have failed on almost every parameter. It's the international community that is not on their side. It's UN condemnation that is no longer automatically there because of the new U.S. administration. The Sunni Arab world is not on their side anymore. You're talking about even the reconciliation between Hamas and Fatah is no longer there. The Israeli public we don't believe them anymore that they really want peace. I mean, it's a colossal failure. And what happened is that they decided that they will get the attention of the whole world and of themselves if they just bring thousands of people to mass around the border between Israel and Gaza. Now, bear in mind, Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2004, and you need to understand that we did that unilaterally, but we moved back to the international border, which means Gaza is no longer an occupied territory. Now, since Gaza is a launching pad for so many rockets, and since Gaza was taken over by a terrorist organization called Hamas, Israel completely locked Gaza from our side. We say, you want to have connections with Egypt, that's fine, but we're not going to allow you to freely go in and out of Israel and bring all those bombs and explosives. It's out of the question. We're definitely going to let food and medicine or anything you need into the Gaza Strip. We will definitely do that, but we're not going to open the Gaza Strip to Israel as if nothing is happening when the terrorist organization is taking over. Now, you need to understand also that most Gazans understand Hamas is the worst nightmare that they ever had. And in fact, for the last 10 years, Hamas is ruling Gaza, and it brought Gaza to the worst situation they've ever been. Now, bear in mind that they promised a march of 1 million people, and barely 20,000 showed up. Now, Israeli intelligence, knew exactly that they're going to use this mass gathering of thousands of people to infiltrate through the fence into Israel, and to let terrorists, under the guise of some popular peaceful demonstration, we knew that they're planning on sending terrorists, and so they did. In fact, if Israel killed anyone, we killed armed people, we killed terrorists, we killed several people that tried to plant bombs, and we killed people who try to infiltrate with guns on them. So peaceful it wasn't, civilian it wasn't, and it was everything we expected it to be and more. And trust me, the casualties, 16, was nothing compared to what it could have been. And I want to tell you something. 16 people, and I'm talking about innocent people in Syria, women and children that die almost every hour, nobody cares about them. Nobody convened the Security Council of the United Nations. Nobody does a thing. But 16 Palestinians, of which most of them are armed and try to infiltrate into Israel, that is a war crime. That is, we need to investigate that. The Security Council convenes. The UN Secretary General says, well, let's have an independent investigation of how they died. It's very simple. They died because they tried to cross the border with weapons on them. You don't have to be rocket scientists to find it. We can provide you all the evidences. We have all the videos. We have all the footage. We found those guns on them and those hand grenades on them. Are you kidding me? The world finds time in the Security Council to condemn Israel that is trying to protect its borders, but says nothing about the ongoing slaughter in Syria, which is again the hypocrisy of the UN. And I'll tell you something, they tried yesterday something, they're going to try April 17th again, but their target is by May 14, when Israel has the 70th anniversary according to the solar calendar, and that's the day Trump is planning on moving the embassy to Jerusalem. That's the day they're planning to have their massive protest along the border. Israel is ready. They thought that we're not going to do anything. They thought we're going to just watch them infiltrate into our territory and do nothing. Well, they were wrong again. I think that they were wrong in every parameter. But it's interesting how you can clearly see how the Turkish president is using every opportunity to infiltrate, to somehow incite and bring more fire towards us. It's very sad because nowadays everybody knows the truth. Nowadays, when you have live broadcasts from places, when you have cameras everywhere, when every civilian can have a Facebook Live and it can become, a reporter wherever he is, it's very, very simple. Most of who we killed over the past 24 hours were Hamas operatives, and they were armed. And that's it. If you're planning on entering into Israel with a gun, we will not open the door for you. We will tell you stay away, and if you will try to do it by force, we're going to have to kill you. And I'm telling that to all the nations around the world. If you're not going to let terrorists know that they're going to be killed if they're entering your territory, then they're going to come. They're going to infiltrate into your countries, and they're going to do whatever they want. Europe has allowed terrorists into its territory, and Europe is paying the price. France is paying the price, and Belgium is paying the price, and Germany is paying the price. There's so many incidents that you don't hear about. But the good thing is, and I know some of you saw that there was a report in a Kuwaiti newspaper. Now, Kuwait, let me make it very clear, is a very anti-Semitic country, very, very anti-Israel country. And don't believe, in fact, it is the Kuwait that convened the meeting of the Security Council right now to speak about what's going on in Gaza. But it is a Kuwaiti newspaper that reported couple of days ago that Israeli F-35s were flying into the airspace of Iran. And I'm wondering, who is it that leaked that information? You certainly never heard that from me, although I know, and I can tell you up front from close talks that I have with Israeli commanders and squadron commanders of Israeli Air Force, Ever since President Trump was elected, Israel is enjoying the freedom that we never had in the past 8 years of doing what it needs to do in order to ensure its security. And I'm talking about things that I wish I could tell you. I wish I could tell you about. I will be a responsible Israeli, and I will not say those things live on the internet when I know that it's going to endanger our soldiers and endanger our people. But I will only tell you this, that the leaked information of the Kuwaiti newspaper is most likely coming from some mole in Arab intelligence community, and that's what worries me the most. Israel doesn't mind that the Iranian will know that we are interested in destroying their nuclear deal. We said that. In fact, Israel itself initiated the report of our responsibility for destroying in 2007 the North Korean nuclear reactor that was built in the Syrian desert. We did that, and we just admitted that. And while we admitted that, we said that we're not going to allow any of our enemies around us to have nuclear capacity and nuclear capability. That's it. So I'm not surprised that Israel says nothing. We don't even deny the fact that F-35s are flying into Iranian airspace. I want to tell you something about the F-35s. We bought them from America. We've got already quite a few of them, maybe 6 or 7 of them. But we put in them systems that are made in Israel, made by Israel. And there are systems that allow the stealth jet fighter to even be more creative and more invisible. And the Russian raiders and the Iranian raiders, in fact, most of the region, they never heard about those flights. Allow me to suspect that the only ones that were aware of our flights there were the Americans, and now allow me to not to suspect, but to tell you up front that ever since Trump is in the White House, America is allowing Israel to do what Israel needs to do in order to gather information about the Iranian nuclear plan. For the 8 years of Obama's administration, we were warned by Obama, don't even think about flying towards Iran. Certainly not to attack there. And I want to tell you that in the last year, Israel had more operations in the depth of our enemy's territory. More than, in 1 year, we had more operations than all 8 years combined. And we do that because we finally have someone who understands how and why and who should fight terrorists. And this is the one thing I admire about President Trump, is that you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You just have to understand there's the good guys and there's the bad guys. The good guys will always tell you the truth. The bad guys will always lie to your face. And the good guys will be on your side all the time. And the bad guys will only be with you when they need you. And they'll turn their back to you when you're no longer helping them somehow. And he could see that immediately. And he doesn't believe the Iranians. He knows that the Iranians are very sneaky. They're snakes. And I'm talking about the Iranian administration. The Iranian people are wonderful people, just so you know. We love them, and we hope that one day they will be released from that regime of tyrants over there. But I want to tell you that President Trump is in actions and in words is signaling to the world that in mid-May he's probably going to pull out of the Iranian nuclear deal. And that's why the Europeans are very concerned right now. In fact, the Europeans are standing firm with Trump when it comes to what's going on in Syria right now. And just like Kim Jong-un, the Europeans understand that in the White House, there is someone who's not playing games. And there is someone they can call him crazy, but he is crazy. He's crazy because it's unknown in the realm of diplomacy to see someone who says one thing and means it. And he says it and he does it, and they don't understand. How come you're saying everything? How come you're going straight forward? I mean, it's very strange for them. I've seen Trump's greeting for Passover and Easter a couple days ago, and I was deeply moved because I saw a president that understands one thing. He understands the aspiration of the Jewish people to live in freedom in their promised land. He called that their promised land. And he also acknowledged the faith in not only Jesus Christ as the Son of God, but also in the resurrection of Jesus. I wish I could meet the guy and tell him how much there are so many Israelis that appreciate him, that love him. And I can tell you another thing. I can tell you that it's very easy to always think about his shortcomings and more so about his vices and bad past. I want to tell you something. We are all sinners saved by grace. And I can tell you one thing. From what I know, and I know that some of you may not agree with me, but I know some of the advisory members of President Trump when it comes to spiritual matters. And they told me that towards the end of the election campaign, about a month before the elections, when all the bad, terrible, locker room conversation was leaked to the media, that was the time President Trump understood his sinful nature and realized how much he needs Jesus. And it's interesting, ever since, you see he's very, very consistent in his support in Christianity and Christians and in Judeo-Christian principles. It's very, very interesting also that most of what they come up with is old stuff. The guy was a sinner. In fact, show me one politician in Washington, D.C. that is clean. But I will also tell you that this is a trick of the enemy. Satan will always, once you're saved, once you're forgiven, then Satan will always remind you of how bad your sins were and how bad you were and how unforgiven you are and all of those things. And I want to tell you something. I look at President Trump and I'm saying to myself, if this man is saved, God is using him in an amazing way right now. And I'm speechless when I see those things. He's so bold in the way he speaks, not only to the people of the world, but also to the media. And he puts the Midianites right where they need to be. And he tells them the truth to their faces. And they don't like him. And if the media loves you, you're in trouble. You're in deep trouble. The Midianites will always, always take the side of the one who owns them and the one who sponsors them. They're not straightforward and they're not, having their own independent thinking. They are the horn of the one who owns them, and remember that. Now, I know President Trump just said that we will not stay long in Syria. He just said a couple days ago. And then came the Saudi crown prince today, and he said, if America is going to leave Syria, Iran will take over. And I will tell you something. President Trump, I don't know if you understand that, but what he did in the Middle East is beyond phenomenal. He understood one thing. He understood that the one thing that the Syrians, the Russians are looking for is financing their struggle over there. He understood that the biggest oil fields are the prize that they want to have. He understood that in order to stop Assad, you need to stop his funding. And so President Trump actively right now, I don't know if you understand that, but America is involved right now actively in building military presence over there in Syria, and I'm talking about massive military presence over there right now. We're talking about 20 different military bases where thousands of American soldiers are already there alongside with the Kurds. You're talking about rocket, some bases that are shielded from rockets all around those oil and gas fields in the Syrian area east of the Euphrates. Also, a military installation is being built next to the Omar oil field, and the Americans brought their tanks and armored vehicles and drawbridges to cross the water and so many things. You understand that those oil fields manufacture 15,000 barrels a day, and neither the Shiites nor ISIS or Bashar al-Assad or the Russians are having their hand on them. It is the American protected forces that are there right now. You're talking about oil fields that in the height of their capacity in 2002 managed to supply 677,000 barrels a day. But then, of course, it came down to 380, and of course today we're talking about 15,000. Can you imagine the potential of those things? But not only that, Trump made it clear that the best way to stop all the money from flowing into Syria is also to close the passage into Syria from Jordan and from Turkey and from Iraq. And I want to tell you something. He's very successful in doing that. And I know that not all of us are admirers of the Turks right now. But right now, what the Turks are doing in the north, in blocking the passage into Syria for the Syrian regime, and right now what the Jordanians are doing from the south and what the Iraq is doing from the east, the whole dream of Iran to build a bridge from Iran to Mediterranean is gone. And add to that the soon withdrawal from the nuclear agreement, and you're looking at a great disaster for Iran. Russia is now expelling diplomats from its territory in a response to the expulsion of diplomats from all over Europe. The Russians are more isolated than ever. And I tell you, the Iranians are becoming also more isolated than ever. Turkey is also the gap between the Turks and the rest of NATO and the rest of Europe is growing wider and wider. And ladies and gentlemen, although the Turks don't really align with the Russians and the Iranians when it comes to Syria, when it comes to Israel, the Turks will do whatever it takes to bring about an end to Israel's existence. And even if it comes to collaboration with Russia and Iran. And I think this is phenomenal. So we're looking into a possibility of some Israeli action in Iran. We're looking into a possibility of American action in Syria, and we're looking into a possibility of Russia, of course, not agreeing to all of that happening all around it. And I'm just wondering, what's going to come first, a Russian-American confrontation or a Russian-Israeli confrontation? This is going to be interesting. The one thing I know, biblically, when the Russian-Israeli confrontation will come, America won't be able to help Israel. That is a for sure one, because the Bible doesn't say so. So I'm going to let you decide. Where the Bible is silent, I better be silent. So this is it. I just wanted to report about, the Israeli planes above Iran, about what's going on in Gaza, about what's going on in Syria, and what's going on with Russia right now. I think there's a lot of things that are happening. I also want to warn you, there's too many news websites online, and some of them look very friendly to the Christians, and most of them are sensationalists. Most of them are having horrible sources, and most of them will deceive you. Most of them will deceive you. And I'm talking about regarding the Middle East. I'm not sure what's going on in your own countries. That's, of course, up to you. But when it comes to the Middle East, there's a lot of disinformation. And I would like you always to examine things with an open Bible rather than with an open television set. It is a very, very important thing that we don't jump into conclusions, and that and for the most part, every time they report on something sensational and then it never happens, you will never hear any apology from them. And they're going to report some very imaginary stuff that is happening, and then they will never say, sorry, we were wrong. So I would be very, very careful. These could be almost falling under that definition of false prophets. So be very, very careful when it comes to these things. Good. So thank you, everyone, for watching. Again, tomorrow, around this time tomorrow, probably about 20 minutes later than now, tomorrow I'm going to be giving a live teaching on the resurrection of Jesus, a teaching that is called First Fruits Resurrection. It's a teaching that I really want to give here online, especially to people who've been to church or those who cannot go to church. But those who've been to church, early morning sunrise service will probably have an extra service if they want when they watch. But those who don't go to church, who may not have a church, that could be your Easter service. I'm going to try and have a quiet house here, and we're going to talk about Old Testament promises. We're going to talk about New Testament fulfillment. We're going to talk about the meaning of the resurrection of Jesus. We're also going to clear the fog, or at least try to understand how come there's so many theories about the crucifixion day. I'm going to try and give you at least the two major schools of teachings when it comes to the crucifixion time. And we're going to try and understand why is it that there's so much confusion about that. And we're also going to talk about what is it that the sign of Jonah meant versus what is it that Hosea the prophet meant. So we're going to look into those things tomorrow evening. We're going to talk about the meaning of the resurrection. We're going to talk about many things tomorrow. Hopefully you will be there, and tomorrow you'll be blessed by the message. Thank you very much. Again, I'm